Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
Today we're sharing 5 stories, starting with Epic Systems, where the 82-year-old CEO has a wild succession plan to control her company and its 325 million patient records from beyond the grave. Then we'll explore how disease has a scent from dogs sniffing out cancer with 99% accuracy to companies building AI that uses real human olfactory receptors. After that, we'll dig into Instagram's new map feature, which is broadcasting users' live locations by mistake, forcing major damage control over privacy concerns. We'll also explain why Applied Materials stock just plummeted right after beating earnings, a story involving a massive forecast hole and US export controls on China. And finally, we'll look at why China's Robot Olympics was full of spectacular failures on purpose and how every crash helps close a critical gap in robot development. The 82-year-old founder of a secretive tech giant has a succession plan to control her company from beyond the grave. It includes a special committee whose only job is to sue her own family if they ever try to sell. The company is Epic Systems, and its CEO, Judy Faulkner, is one of the most powerful people in healthcare you've probably never heard of. From a Wisconsin basement in 1979, she built a software empire that now holds the medical records of 325 million patients worldwide. And the scale of this, it's just massive. Epic controls 42% of the electronic health record market in US hospitals. Its next closest competitor, Oracle, is at just 23%. And Oracle had to spend $28 billion on an acquisition just to get in the game. The thing is, Epic's growth is fundamentally different from almost every other tech giant. By rejecting venture capital and public markets, Faulkner maintained total control. This allowed for a steady, self-funded expansion focused on long-term product development rather than chasing quarterly earnings. The upside, customers get a stable, consistent product. The downside, employees don't get the massive payday from public stock options you see at other tech companies. But Epic does things differently. Faulkner has never taken venture capital money and refuses to make acquisitions. When the former CEO of General Electric tried to buy the company, the meeting lasted 5 minutes. Faulkner's response to other potential buyers, she's told her staff to tell them, just leave your car running. Her company campus has been called a Techie's Disney World, with office buildings themed after Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz, complete with a slide and a castle. Now, get this, that campus culture isn't just for fun, it's a strategic choice. Epic mandates in-person work and recruits heavily from colleges, using its unique environment to foster creativity. But this creates a huge question for their future. In a world shifting to remote work, research shows that rigid in-office policies can cause companies to lose senior, experienced talent. So while the campus is a magnet for young grads, it might become a long-term liability. Yet this whimsical empire faces fierce criticism. An executive at rival Oracle called Faulkner the single biggest obstacle to sharing medical data. Epic is also fighting multiple lawsuits accusing it of anti-competitive practices. This isn't just corporate trash talk. It's playing out in federal court. In September 2024, a startup called Particle Health filed an antitrust lawsuit against Epic. They claim Epic uses its massive market share to create a walled garden, making it incredibly difficult for smaller companies to access patient data. The core of the debate is this: is Epic's closed system a necessary evil to ensure quality, or an anti-competitive moat to crush rivals? The outcome could reshape the entire healthcare tech industry. Faulkner remains unfazed. She has pledged to give away 99% of her $7.8 billion fortune and says she has never cashed a single share for herself. Her final power move ensures her vision is locked in forever. Her voting shares will go into a trust governed by her family and employees. But to enforce the rules, she created an oversight board called the Trust Protector Committee. Its sole purpose is to sue the trust if they ever break her number one rule: do not go public. Do not be acquired. This is a structure known as a perpetual purpose trust, designed to lock in a founder's vision forever. But that raises a dilemma. Founder-led companies often succeed because of the founder's unique, charismatic leadership. What happens when that leader is gone, replaced by a committee bound by rigid rules from the past? Legal experts warn this inflexibility could prevent the company from adapting to future market shifts, potentially ossifying the very vision it was meant to protect. From the challenge of securing a founder's legacy, we turn to the challenge of securing our health using a sense we barely understand. Our story begins with a claim that sounds impossible. A woman said she could smell Parkinson's disease, so scientists put her to the test. They gave her 12 t-shirts to sniff 6 from patients and 6 from a control group. She not only identified all 6 patients correctly, she identified a 7th person who, less than a year later, was officially diagnosed with the disease. She pre-diagnosed Parkinson's just by using her nose. What makes this so stunning is that researchers have now identified around 30 consistent volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, that act as a kind of scent fingerprint for Parkinson's. But here's the challenge, and why a human nose this accurate is so rare. These scent fingerprints aren't perfectly universal. They can change slightly based on a person's genetics, diet, and environment, which makes the risk of a false positive a real concern. And this isn't a one-off miracle. This is a new frontier in medicine. It turns out disease has a scent, and some canines can detect it with terrifying accuracy. In one study, trained dogs were able to sniff out prostate cancer in urine samples with a 99% success rate. This all led a physicist developing a robotic nose, to put it bluntly, saying, "It drives me mad that people are dying and we are putting needles up people's butts in order to find out if they have prostate cancer when the signal is already outside and detectable by dogs." The science is all about those volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. When you get sick, your body's chemical reactions change, producing a unique scent fingerprint that gets excreted through your skin and breath. Liver disease can create a musty odor. Diabetes can smell like rotten apples. Even tuberculosis can make a person's breath smell like stale beer. But actually building a machine to do this, well, the problem isn't just smelling the VOCs, it's telling them apart from everything else. Think about it. Your personal scent is a complex storm of signals from your diet, your soap, your laundry detergent, and any medications you take. The real challenge for the AI is to learn how to filter out all that background noise and isolate the 1 or 2 molecules that are actually a biomarker for a disease. The problem is most human noses can't pick up these subtle scents. But that's about to change. The race is now on to build technology that replicates this superpower. Researchers are closing in on a simple skin swab test that could detect Parkinson's years earlier. And one company, RealNose.ai, is building a device using real human olfactory receptors grown in a lab combined with AI to create a system that can smell disease. And the way this biohybrid technology works is straight out of science fiction. Scientists are taking real human olfactory receptors, the tiny biological sensors in your nose, and embedding them onto electronic chips. When a specific scent molecule locks into the receptor, it triggers a tiny electrical change on the chip. The AI then reads that digital signal. They are literally keeping biological cells alive and functional on a microchip to translate a smell into a piece of data. This research suggests our bodies are constantly broadcasting our health status through scent. The only question is, are we finally building the tools to listen? All this research, however, raises a profound ethical question for our future. If this technology becomes cheap and portable, what happens to our medical privacy? Imagine being non-consensually screened for health conditions at an airport or an employer's office. This isn't just about early detection, it's about who has the right to listen in on the silent, chemical conversations our bodies are having. Speaking of our personal data and who gets to see it, our next story is about a new feature from Instagram that's making a lot of people very nervous. So Instagram just gave a new feature to 170 million people. The twist, it's basically a digital ghost town. The company's new Instagram map lets you share your exact real-time location with all of your followers. But when one reporter turned it on, he found just one other person using it, an old colleague he hadn't spoken to in over a decade. The colleague thought he was sharing old tagged locations from past posts. He was wrong. The reporter informed him that he was in fact broadcasting his live position at that very moment, saying, "I didn't zoom in because I assume this is your house." There was a long pause. Then the colleague wrote back, "I just turned it off." This confusion is at the heart of a quiet battle between Meta and its users. The head of Instagram, Adam Mosseri, has been playing damage control, but the problem goes deeper than a simple misunderstanding. To understand this decision, you have to look at what's happening behind the scenes. Mosseri himself has talked about a paradigm shift in social media, saying more content is now shared privately in DMs than publicly in the main feed. This feature is Instagram's high-stakes attempt to compete directly with platforms like Snapchat. The problem is they're trying to bolt an intimate feature onto a platform built for public broadcasting, and the two just don't mix. As one user put it, it's like they don't understand their user base at all. Instagram was born and bred as a broadcasting service. I'm much more likely to get stalked by an Instagram follower than a Snapchat friend. This gets at a core problem researchers call context collapse. On Snapchat, your audience is usually a tight circle of real-life friends. But on Instagram, your followers are a mix of close friends, family, co-workers, and even total strangers. When you share your live location into that collapsed context, you lose all control over who sees it and how they might use it. This comes after Meta has paid billions in fines over its rocky history with user data. So why would Meta risk this? Because this isn't just about showing you ads for a nearby coffee shop. This is a geolocation goldmine. Real-time location data, especially when linked to your social network, allows for something called reality mining. It lets a company see not just where you are, but who you're with, what places are becoming popular in real time, and predict group behaviors. It's an incredibly powerful data set. Experts are sounding the alarm, especially for younger users. One study found that 45% of adolescent girls said location sharing had a mostly negative effect on them, creating social pressure and fear. And this isn't just a social problem, it's a potential legal one. While US law has historically protected platforms, the legal landscape is shifting. When a platform designs a feature that actively broadcasts sensitive, real-time data, questions of liability get much more serious, especially if it's linked to cases of stalking or harm involving minors. So what does it really feel like to have this feature on? The reporter who investigated soon got a message from an ex-girlfriend. It said, "Hey, just so you know you're sharing your exact location, be safe. It made me nervous." He turned it off. From one tech giant's self-inflicted privacy wound, we turn to another that's caught in the crossfire of global politics. A company's stock just plummeted over 10%. And strangely enough, it happened right after they announced they'd beaten their earnings goals. This isn't just any company. This is Applied Materials, one of the most important businesses you've never heard of. They build the complex machines that physically create the world's semiconductor chips. And they just dropped a number that sent shockwaves through the market. The reason this is such a big deal is that companies like Applied Materials are what experts call a geopolitical choke point. They are one of a tiny handful of firms that can build the foundational equipment for the entire digital world. Because of this, they are at the absolute heart of the escalating US-China tech conflict. For context, China accounted for a staggering 35% of Applied Materials sales in the last quarter. This isn't just a customer, it's their biggest market, and it's now at risk. Despite beating revenue and profit estimates, their forecast for the future was a bombshell. The market expected them to pull in over $7.3 billion next quarter. Their actual projection, only $6.7 billion. That's a more than $600 million hole. Here's where it gets interesting. The semiconductor industry runs on what's called a fab cycle. Building a single new chip factory can cost over $10 billion and take years. This means orders for equipment come in massive, lumpy waves. So when a company like Applied Materials signals a slowdown, it tells investors that these giant projects are being delayed or cancelled, and that sends immediate panic through the supply chain. So what's really going on? The CEO pointed to increased uncertainty and lower visibility, with one specific country in mind, China. Well, insiders have a term for what's happening in China right now, capacity digestion. For the last few years, Chinese firms have been on a buying spree, stockpiling chip-making equipment, but now they have more capacity than they can actually use. China's top chip maker, SMIC, is reportedly running its factories at only 70% capacity, far below the profitable 85% mark. They are struggling to digest what they've already bought, so they've stopped ordering more. The company's finance chief then delivered the knockout blow, stating they expect their lower China business to continue for several more quarters. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. Applied Materials admitted it has a large backlog of pending export license applications to sell to China, and their new operating assumption that none of them will be approved. Zero. This is happening because of very specific US government export controls designed to stop China from getting the advanced equipment needed to produce high-end semiconductors for its military. It's a direct policy move to slow their technological and military advancement, and Applied Materials is on the front line. And this is the same company that was recently praised by Donald Trump and included in an Apple program to bring chip manufacturing back to the United States, specifically in Austin, Texas. This presents a classic case of policy whiplash. On one side, the US government is rewarding the company with incentives to build factories in America. On the other, it's cutting off access to their largest international market. This creates incredible tension, and it's why the company's lobbying spending in Washington has skyrocketed as they try to navigate these contradictory forces caught between two superpowers. That US-China conflict brings us directly to our final story, which comes from the front lines of the race for technological dominance. China just hosted a robot Olympics to showcase its technological power, but the real showstopper wasn't what you think. It was the spectacular failures. Imagine this. During a football match, 4 humanoid robots crash into each other and collapse in a tangled heap. In a 1,500-meter sprint, another robot suddenly tumbles mid-stride, drawing gasps and cheers from the crowd. Interestingly enough, there's a reason we cheer when a multi-million-dollar piece of tech faceplants. It's something researchers call the pratfall effect. We actually find robots more likable and less intimidating when they make mistakes. Seeing them fail in a human-like way makes them seem more relatable, which could be a key factor in getting society to accept them in our daily lives. This wasn't a rare accident. Humanoids repeatedly toppled over, needing assistance to get back up. But if you think this was some embarrassing failure, you're actually missing the real story. Believe it or not, this was the entire point. The event drew 280 teams from 16 countries, including the United States and Germany. But the goal wasn't winning medals. The competition itself reveals a deeper strategy. This isn't just about building the best robot. Many teams are actually using standardized hardware from Chinese manufacturers. The real contest is in the software. It's a battle of who can write the most advanced AI to control these machines. This means the hardware company gets tons of feedback to improve its products, while the software teams push the boundaries of artificial intelligence. Organizers stated the games are a massive data collection operation. Every single crash provides valuable information for developing robots for practical use, like factory work on assembly lines. The data from these falls is gold because it helps bridge a huge challenge in robotics called the sim-to-real gap. You can train a robot in a computer simulation 1,000,000 times, but the real world is messy and unpredictable. Things like friction are hard to simulate perfectly. The data from these real-world falls teaches the AI how to handle the chaos of reality, making the robots more resilient and adaptable for any task. This is the visible edge of a much larger strategy. We're talking about a core part of China's Made in China 2025 industrial plan. The government has poured over $20 billion in subsidies into the sector and is reportedly planning a $137 billion fund for startups. The goal is to lead the world in what's called embodied intelligence, putting AI brains into physical robot bodies. This focus on hardware is a direct strategy to automate its economy and maintain a competitive edge. One competitor from a German university team summed up the mission perfectly. He said if they try something and it doesn't work, they just lose a game. He added, that's better than investing a lot of money into a product which fails in the real world. So while spectators paid up to $80 to watch robots fall down, they were actually witnessing a key part of a global tech race. The real competition isn't on the field, it's for the future of manufacturing. The question is, who is really winning?
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.